Based on a true story, a woman seeks a new life from her stale marriage when thugs invade their home. This sparks a new chapter into the couple's life, with the wife proving herself as more than a victim. After witnessing someone being shot, Beth Walker runs upstairs to escape the armed man. She locks herself in the bathroom but can't escape through the window. With the assailant at the door, she pours bleach on a bucket, and when the door opens, she splashes it on the intruder. Some time ago, Beth lazily read a vacation brochure on her work break. Her co-worker Allie commented on the brochure, asking if her husband gifted her the vacation for their wedding anniversary. Beth denied, saying things are different between her and her husband. Allie advised her co-worker that it might be time to have children for them to love as a couple. Beth admitted she hadn't been intimate with her husband since he came back from military service. This makes Allie worry if her husband was cheating on her, but Beth firmly disagreed. Switching to a lighter topic, Allie commented that she was anxious about her appointment since she and her husband were finally having a baby. Just then, the cook called Beth to get back to work, prompting Allie to leave. On her way out, she advised her to cook something nice for her husband for their anniversary. Beth returned to work and approached two customers, Doug and JB. The men leered at her and Doug pulled her to sit on him. Beth endured the situation until a police officer, Walt Armentrout, checked in on them. Now with backup, Beth stood up and the officer threatened the thugs, saying he'll do a background check on them if they don't leave. JB mockingly barks at the officer before leaving with his friend. When Beth returned to the counter, she asked Walt not to tell her husband about what just happened, reasoning that she doesn't want to scare him and force her to quit. Walt nodded and advised the woman to give her husband a chance and start over. Elsewhere, Beth's husband, Officer Pete, was on duty, watching the road. He gazed at vultures gathering on a dead deer when Walt called him over the radio. He mentioned that he had coffee in Beth's diner, and when Pete asked if anything happened, Walt replied that there's nothing to worry about. Walt greeted him on their anniversary and assured him that his wife looked like a woman in love, so their relationship should be smooth sailing. While he's talking, Pete notices Doug and JB drive by. Later, as Beth started her car to head home, Doug's truck stopped to block her before driving away. Despite the anxiety, the woman continued to head home. She arrived home and prepared to cook, but there was no water from the sink. She went out for a smoke before checking the well in the yard, only to find it completely dry. Later that night, Pete arrived with a gift, which he promptly hid. He then saw his wife in a dress preparing dinner, so he praised her before making his way to the stairs to change upstairs. Before he did, Beth reminded him to lock his gun in the safe. Pete hesitated but followed his wife's advice anyway. He then tried to kiss Beth, but only pecked her cheek, disappointing the woman. Elsewhere, Doug and JB relaxed in their truck, passing time. The two discussed stars and luck, but JB felt pessimistic about the job Doug was planning. Soon, Walt's police car rolled up behind them. The officer checked on them and asked what they were doing on the road leading to the Walkers' household. Not willing to give them a chance, Walt aimed his gun and ordered them out of the vehicle. He frisked JB and found a gun, which he then threw away. This angered the man, but Walt aimed his gun at him before he could act against it. He did the same to Doug and threw his firearm away. The officer then hit their legs with his club and threatened them to leave. Injured, the two then shambled to the truck and drove away. As Walt turned his back, however, the truck spun around and ran him over. In the Walker household, Beth presented a lovely dinner for her husband, but Pete turned the police scanner on before sitting at the table. She asked to turn it off, and after a moment, Pete agreed. He turned the radio off and dropped the safe key inside an ornament, proving his commitment to their evening together. Delighted, Beth turned some music on and asked him to dance with her. As they embraced, Pete opened up to his wife, saying he wants things back the way they were, but he has trouble starting the process. In response, the wife gazed at him coyly as she grabbed the wine bottle and headed up the stairs. This led to the couple being intimate again, though Beth seemed distracted while she looked at the clock. Pete awoke to a glaring morning sun and saw Beth missing. He looked for her, and when he saw her outside near a fire pit, she suddenly vanished. The man snapped out of the dream and got up. He checked the photo of his wife in his wallet when Beth, who was also awake, checked on him. The man stood up and commented on how quiet their home was. Just then, he saw a truck pull up and asked Beth if she's expecting anyone. Pete headed down to check on the truck while Beth peered out the window and saw the vehicle the thugs drove. Downstairs, Pete spoke to the two, then returned to Beth. He mentioned that there was an accident down the road with a police officer, and the two went here to call for help. Pete instructed Beth to call for help, keep the door locked, and secure his gun. Meanwhile, he planned to accompany the men to check out the accident. With that, Beth went to their phone while her husband drove away with Doug, leaving JB behind. During the drive, Doug started a seemingly casual conversation, commenting on Pete's marriage. He mentioned that he'll do anything for his own woman, and Pete agreed. They soon reached Walt, but while the officer checked on his colleague, Doug aimed his gun at the man. However, he hesitated when Pete exclaimed that the officer was still alive, so he helped him take the cop into the truck. As they hoisted Walt up, Doug suddenly realized that his gun was missing. In the house, Beth stood still as JB cooed an apology about the incident at the diner. He asked for a drink, so Beth relented and handed him a soda through the door. The thug took it and commented on the house security as he walked away. Just then, the man complained about the mosquitoes outside. Pitying him, Beth decided to invite him inside. JB looked around their home and saw Pete's military commendations just before they heard the truck arrive. The three men carry Walt inside the house. Once inside, Pete asked the men to give them space. Once alone with Beth, he explained that the men probably ran over Walt and might attack them too. He asked for his gun, but Beth failed to get it earlier, so he asked her to distract the two while he fetched the gun and called for backup. Unbeknownst to them, their unwanted guests argued why Pete was still alive and the fact that Doug somehow lost the gun. Soon, the couple approached them and informed them that help was on the way. Casually, Beth asked them to leave, but Doug insisted on staying until the EMTs arrived. With that, Beth offered them some leftovers, and JB immediately accepted. However, Doug insisted on washing up in the bathroom first, given the blood on his hands. While cleaning up in the bathroom, Doug overheard Walt cough. Given that the man is alone, he went downstairs and tried to end him by suffocating him with a pillow. Walt glared dreadfully and struggled to lift his gun, which is the same weapon that Doug had lost earlier. Fortunately, Pete called the thug to eat upstairs. Now gathered at the table, Beth served the food with a knife on the plate. Doug reached for the knife, but Pete grabbed it first, insisting to serve their meal. While they ate, Pete asked them some questions, but then Doug decided to attack. He grabbed the knife, but Pete tackled him. JB pulled him from behind, but the husband threw him off with a knife slicing his side as it dropped. Doug then put the husband on a chokehold and the two held him until he passed out. All the while, Beth was frozen in fear. When they claimed that her husband was dead, she quickly grabbed the knife and raced up the stairs with Doug in pursuit. In her bedroom, Doug confronted the woman who held the knife at his throat. However, the man laid on the bed and Beth dropped the knife before turning the dreadful evening into one of passion. Meanwhile, JB watched Walt and noticed the gun on his side. He yanked the weapon and revealed to the officer that the people upstairs were old lovers while the two of them were just collateral. After talking about how the hottest love ends in the coldest ways, he ended Walt using a pillow. After their intimate time together, Doug noticed the lottery ticket on the side table and asked Beth what it was for since her husband's life insurance was close to $1 million. She explained that it was a backup plan in case things go wrong. Doug then showed her a tattoo on his back showing both their names. It infuriated Beth, explaining that she could get in trouble if he got caught. She added that JB was a loose thread, but Doug admitted he needed help, though he promised to fix it. Beth sneered at the mention of fixing things, relating him to Pete, who always said the same thing. She told him that he can't fix anything if he doesn't see things clearly. She explained that she once saw a coyote eat a small rabbit in the road. She told him that she understood the coyote's nature to kill just to survive. Since everyone always saw her as a rabbit, she vowed to be the coyote. Walt's death was not part of their plan, so Beth suggested that they hide his body in the well. Afterward, Beth would live on her own as the surviving widow to avoid suspicions. However, they had to make her look like a victim, so Doug hit her. Downstairs, Allie arrived and JB welcomed her in, posing as Pete's cousin. She wanted to show her sonogram to Beth but found the man suspicious and tried to leave. JB told her to place the envelope on the dining table instead. The woman did so and walked off, but the man found her reaction lacking, so he checked the floor and saw Pete's body missing. He cussed and aimed the gun at Allie, but Beth appeared, forcing him to hide his weapon. While the two talked, JB gave the envelope to Beth and the woman feigned delight and introduced JB as Pete's army buddy. The woman then casually hinted on letting Allie go home, and despite the man's hesitance, he agreed. With that, Beth bid her friend farewell and assured her that she was fine. Meanwhile, Doug descended the stairs and JB informed him that Pete had left. The worried man suggested they cut their losses given the events, but Doug insisted on adhering to the plan. JB proposed that they eliminate both Pete and Beth, but Doug pushed him back, angered that his comrade would harm his lady. Their argument was interrupted when the motion detecting lights outside were activated, indicating that Pete was outside. When Beth returned, she confronted JB for nearly killing her friend, but a sonic alarm blared and deafened them. The woman rushed to the keypad to turn it off but struggled to recall the PIN code. If the alarm continued for 30 seconds, it would alert the police, so Doug helped her focus, allowing her to finally disable it. Doug celebrated, but Beth rushed to the safe and found it empty. Worried, Beth turned on the police scanner and they immediately heard Pete calling for backup. With that in mind, the conniving wife figured that her husband was in her car. Her comrades went outside to check, but the vehicle was empty by then. Still, JB cut the radio while Doug raised his hands in surrender as he tried to talk to Pete. He announced that they had his wife, suggesting they should negotiate. Unaware of his wife's betrayal, Pete became concerned. So when JB ran back to the house, he shot him in the ear. With his accomplice hiding behind the truck, Doug rushed back to the house, promising to get help. Still, the pissed and wounded man fired randomly into the darkness and hit the outdoor lights. Doug rushed inside the house and told Beth that he needed a gun. With this in mind, the woman guided him to a locked closet under the stairs. Doug broke into the closet and tossed out Pete's gift, a folder, and some letters. Beth checked items and found a half-burnt picture of herself. She recognized it as the photo of her and Doug that she'd tried to burn, revealing that her husband knew about their relationship all along. This ruined their plan completely, so Beth rushed upstairs and grabbed the lottery ticket, telling Doug they should leave. She tried to burn the photo months ago, and since Pete had it, he likely already took her out of his insurance policy and pension. He might have also told someone about it, but Doug doubted this since he believed Pete still loved her. Pissed, Beth pointed out that Pete kept her confined in the house while he was on military duty. Just then, she realized that she'd be leaving empty-handed, so she plotted to get her husband to trust her again before ending him. Meanwhile, Pete stumbled into the shed and grabbed a first aid kit to patch up his wound. JB used this chance to shoot his enemy, but the officer dodged and tackled his attacker. By the time Beth went outside to look for Pete, she found JB dead. Just then, someone grabbed her from behind, only for it to be Pete. Beth used the chance to lie that Doug had taken advantage of her, but she'd managed to fight back. She then led Pete back to the house to show him. Inside, Beth insisted that everyone was dead, but the husband wondered why the ambulance and police hadn't arrived if his wife called earlier. Suspicious, he asked how she killed Doug. Switching tactics, the woman begged Pete to lower his gun and insisted that he wasn't seeing things clearly due to his trauma. However, the ex-soldier told her that he saw everything clearly now. Just then, Doug snuck up from behind to stab Pete, but the officer noticed Beth's glance and turned to shoot the man. The husband then reached into the dead man's wallet and found a copy of her photo booth pictures. This prompted Beth to rush up the stairs and lock herself in the bathroom. She hid a small blade on her hip and rummaged the cupboards. On the other side of the door, Pete recalled the moment he found the picture. It was when he saw Beth walking away from the fire pit. Unbeknownst to her at the time, her picture wasn't completely burnt yet, leading to her husband finding out the truth. In the present, Pete breaks the door open and Beth throws bleach on his face, blinding him. This allows the woman to slip past and head downstairs to get the gun. He washes the bleach off his face and runs after his wife, ducking as Beth shoots. The woman then runs to the truck while Pete activates the alarm to call for backup. He then chases after his wife, who's preparing to leave in Doug's truck. However, she reminds herself that she doesn't want to be the rabbit on the run anymore, so she turns back and tries to run over Pete. Luckily, she didn't see that the well was between them, so she crashes onto it instead of her husband. Bruised, she exits the car and aims the gun at Pete. She demands to know why Pete never asked nor did anything about her secret relationship. She wails that she married him because she wanted a new life, but instead, he left her for the military, then cooped her inside a bubbled life when he returned. Pete tells her that he can still fix things, but she hates these words and exclaims that she wants something more than him and this life. The officer tries to retrieve the gun from her, but she steps back and stumbles into the well. Pete manages to grab her arm, but Beth realizes that after everything she did to find a new life, she gets nothing. With that, she grabs her hidden blade and stabs Pete's arm. This forces him to release her, causing Beth to plummet down the well. Broken by the events, the grieving Pete sits on the deck while waiting for help. Unbeknownst to him, the scorned wife wakes at the bottom of the well, having been granted the new life she wished for.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.